Good morning, welcome.
You're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Can I be heard now?
Ji ma'am.
Yep.
Audible.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Anil ji. Good morning, Pravesh sir.
Good morning to you and welcome. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. Lovely to see.
So, So the webinar is now live on YouTube. Also live on Zoom. It is being recorded. Over to you, Madhushri.
Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome from the entire team of Sammunati. It is a real pleasure to welcome you all at the launch of Sammunati's Open Agri Network. We are excited to host you today virtually and thank you all for joining us. We will start the session and I would like to invite Shri N. Srinivasan, Financial Sector Expert and Independent Director Sammunati, for the welcome address and open the event. Over to you, sir. So you're
At the outset, let me welcome all of you to this very significant event where we are trying to link the most important constituent and the most important persons as far as the country is concerned to come together in a manner that helps all of us. So today's event is to take that very first step, which several of us in several different ways have tried doing over the last about 10 years. There are people like Pravesh, Mr. Ramesh Chand, and Mrs. Darbari and all that, and also Mr. Chintala being part of NABARD for such a long time, now heading it. So as we, commence today's event, I would like to reflect on the journey that Sammunnati has had. Today it is stepping into the 7th year. After having completed 6 years, though 1 year almost we had spent on trying to sort out the regulatory aspects of getting a license and getting the business going. The way Sammunnati has formed and then it has tried to perform, meeting aspirations that are internal, that are external to people who were involved in it in a business and in an investment point of view, but most importantly, the stakeholders on the ground, that is the farming community. I would say as an independent person, not involved in business, not having a stake in it in any way, it has been a fantastic journey. And when we look at the kind of things that have so far been done, it really makes one feel good about being in an institution that empowers farmers, and it also brings in a lot of new aspects into how we can deal with the real sector problems that relate to marketing and finance. At this stage, let me recognize the panel of dignitaries who have spared their time and to come on board to look at what we are trying to do and give us a guidance on how we can proceed further. Dr. Ramesh Chand from the Niti Aayog, Dr. Chintala, Chairman of NABARD, then Mr. Nilkamal Darbari from the SFAC, then Mr. Sandeep Naik from NCDC. They will be part of the inaugural session of this, trying to reflect on what has been done in the FPO and in agriculture space and provide us guidance on how we can move forward, especially making this network do a power of good to the farming community that will be attached to that. We also have a delightful panel where our esteemed colleague Pravesh is going to talk to a number of industry leaders. Dr. S.K. Goel, earlier ACS of Maharashtra, with whom I have had quite a bit of interaction when we were there. Arindam from Rabobank, Anish from Transforming Rural India, and our own director and former colleague from NABARD, Dr. Venkatesh Tagat, Hemendra Mathur, the person whom you cannot avoid when you are looking at startup space, the fintech and agri-finance. So we have this galaxy of people, and also Mr. Kuldeep Solanki, not to forget. So we have not just the network being inaugurated today, but also some nice discussions that will follow. I'll just take a couple of minutes to look at what Samunnati is representing to a number of people who are there in the ecosystem. It is no doubt a commercial enterprise, but then it is positioned as something which will develop social and development impact payoffs. It is not about just making money. It is about causing development on the ground. And it knows that the market is so large, the demand is so deep, that one institution or even 1,000 Samunnatis cannot really meet with the total requirements of the farming community. So it has no competition in mind. Whenever it sets up these kind of public platforms, whether it is the Samaram for startups that it did, or the Agri Elevate that was done to bring the ecosystem players together on one common place to look at services and products that can be very advantageously negotiated between parties, or in setting this platform. It looks at collaboration, bringing the ecosystem players together, and see whether the power of working together can make not an addition, but a multiplication of our combined synergies, our combined efforts. And so I seek the blessings of all those, the guidance of all those who are here, and also full support to make this network work to its best potential. With this, let me welcome once again all of you, and from my heart, I thank all of you for sparing the time and making it to this very important inaugural function where we are bringing the farming community together on a neutral platform. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Moving ahead, now I would like to invite Shri Anil Kumar SG, founder and CEO of Samunnati, to share his views on the initiative. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and very good morning to all of you. Grateful to Professor Ramesh Chand for taking out time. Chintala sir, you have always been, one of our well-wishers and inspiration. Madam Darbari ma'am, we look forward to your encouragement at all times. Naik Sahab, we would certainly be looking at how cooperatives can lead this movement to the next level, and looking forward to the guidance of Goel Sahab, and of course Hemendra, Arindam, Anish, Pravesh ji, you all have been part of this journey. As Srinivasan sir mentioned, we are entering the 7th year of our existence as an organization this day. But then this journey has not been possible, or wouldn't have been possible, but for the support, guidance and blessings of each one of you on the screen, as well as thousands of stakeholders outside, especially our FPO customers, partners, stakeholders in the agri ecosystem, the stakeholders of Samunnati, the investors, the lenders, and Team Samunnati. So, we express our sincere gratitude to each one of you for all the support and guidance in this journey. While we started our journey technically in 2014, the journey in the FPO space happened after 1.5 years in a very, very accidental manner. Sammunnati itself was an accidental entity, so to say. It was never planned to be an enterprise in agriculture. It happened accidentally. So did our entry into the FPO space. But when I look back these 6 years, nothing seems to be accidental, including the kind of well-wishers and supporters like people on the screen who have been constantly guiding us at regular intervals. What gives us immense satisfaction is that at this point in time, we have covered a little bit of a distance, which is on the right side of the screen. And the endeavor is, as we enter the 7th year of Sammunnati's existence, can we take this journey to the next level? And over the course of today, we will indeed be talking about what are those steps that we are looking at. But suffice it to say that the incredible work that has happened, Madhushri, can we come out of this? Right. The incredible work that has happened in the entire FPO space and the kind of initiatives that are coming in, we at Sammunnati thought we can play our small role, like what a squirrel played in the role of Ramayana. We thought we will offer a platform that we will talk about to the FPOs and the ecosystem player in the FPOs to take the FPO to the next level, this FPO movement to next level. And we solicit your guidance, support, and blessings to this journey. And we look forward to working very closely with you. On that note, Madhushri, over to you.
Thank you, sir, for setting up the context. Now I would like to invite Shri Sandeep Nayak, MD, NCDC, Government of India, for the opening address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Anil Kumar, Mr. Srinivasan, Mr. Pravesh Sharma, and our dear friend and philosopher and guide, Dr. Chintala, and Ms. Darbari, Nilkamal Darbari ji. It is indeed a great occasion for NCDC, the National Cooperative Development Corporation, to be part of this network, primarily aimed at increasing value to the farmers. As you know, our organization, National Cooperative Development Corporation, under the Ministry of Agriculture, is working with the cooperatives for the promotion and development of cooperatives since 1963. We support all types of cooperatives, whether they are at the primary level or at the district level or at the state or national level, apex level. All types of cooperatives, almost in every kind of activity we support. Support is in terms of financial assistance, which can be a loan, long-term, short-term loans, or the different schemes of Government of India, which are routed through us, and also through capacity development in terms of training, preparation of DPRs, and other kind of assistance we provide. We have a separate academy, National Academy for Cooperative Research and Development, through which we extend our capacity development programs. We are present all over the country at 18 regional offices. We have regional training centers also. And coming back to the prime focus of today's meeting is on the FPO scheme. There are two different types of FPOs which Government of India are pushing. The first is the 10,000 FPO scheme of the Government of India in the Department of Agriculture, which is a very ambitious, very important scheme, in which one of the partners is NCDC, which is as an implementing agency. We are focused only on cooperatives, the FPOs which will be formed or which are being formed under the Cooperative Society Act model, the registered under the Cooperative Societies Act, are responsibility of us. That responsibility has been given to us and also NABARD. So we look forward to working with all the partners in forming FPOs across the country, all over the country, wherever they are, under the Cooperative Societies Act, to carry forward the cooperative movement in the form of FPO cooperatives. I also mentioned another FPO format, which is of the Department of Fisheries, which is called Fish Farmers Producer Organization, FFPO. There also a similar format in which we are one of the implementing agencies to form fish farmers FPOs. And in the entire value chain. It is not only producing fish, but also adding value to the entire supply chain of the connected with the fish. What we have done or we have achieved so far is that we have through a open national level advertisement process, along with NABARD, we have empaneled CBBOs who are working with the in the field with the ground level farmers, organizing them. So far, we have formed about 24 FPOs across the country. We have been given a target of about 530 odd cooperative FPOs in the last financial year. The current financial year, it is under discussion how many will be allocated to NCDC, but we are geared to meet those meet the requirements of the FPOs on the ground through our network of regional training centers, regional offices, as well as our cooperative sector partners, which are, as you know, almost 94% of the farmers of this country are member of at least one cooperative. So 94% of the farmers are member of at least one cooperative, and NCDC reaches out to all those cooperatives and through different means. So far, since our inception, we have extended a loan of assistance of around 1,90,000 crores to the cooperative sector, and during last 3 years alone, our loans we have extended to the in the order of around 85,000 crores to the cooperative sector. So last 3 years is this much, and during last 7 years, if you compare from 1963, our growth of assisting the cooperatives has been almost of the order of 250% more since 63 till 2014, and from 2014 till 2021, the growth, the increase has been 250% or so. So we look forward to work with all the network partners in the interest of the cooperatives and their members. It is indeed a pleasure to talk here, and we look forward to different kinds of partnerships. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir, for gracing us with your presence and sharing your views. Next, I would like to invite Mrs. Neelkamar Darwari, MD, SFAC, to deliver the special address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anilji, for this. Very good morning to Professor Ramesh Chandra, Mr. G.R. Chintala, my friend Sandeep Nayak, Parvesh Sarji, all other stakeholders who are present here, Anilji, of course, from Samunnati. Indeed, it's an honor to be here on this special event of Samunnati, which in such a short span of time has really created a very strong niche for itself in the NBFC segment, particularly in relation to the lendings with FPOs. I saw that you have, from the first loan to FPOs in 2015, you have covered a long way, and you have come to a point where 1,000 FPOs you have funded so far. And also the rate of interest, which was pretty high at 18 to 24%, I think, in the initial years, is now down to 14%, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So I think that's a very, very important journey that Samunnati has traveled. In the meanwhile, the country has also really re-looked at the whole business of FPOs. And I'm very happy that SFAC played a very prominent role. We held, if you remember, we held so many discussions while we were strategizing on the new policy, what the new policy should look like, what the implementation structure will look like. And amongst all the gaps that we identified in terms of what makes an FPO tick and it doesn't tick, were actually two critical. I mean, many things: capacity building, gaps in logistics, etc., low capacities and at high attrition, etc. But we identified two critical gaps without which nothing will work, and one of them was financing the FPOs, and the other one is marketing linkages for FPOs. So credit linkages and marketing linkages are, if you were to ask me, the two most important, most critical elements in the success of FPOs. These two would take the cake. I'm not discounting the other factors, but that's where we are. And to that extent, I think Samunnati has taken the lead, and it's doing great in terms of providing credit linkages to the FPOs. SFAC, of course, is the nodal agency for the promotion of this new scheme, 10,000 FPOs. We have also covered a lot of ground since the inception of the scheme, not only in creating a structure for ourselves through the National Project Management Agency, but also inviting applications for empanelment of CBBOs. One of the key changes in the policy today is that we have at the intermediary level a structure called the cluster-based business organization, which has really caught on with the players in the sector. Everyone seems to have CBBO on the tip of their tongue, and it really is interesting to watch that, because it was really something we coined in SFAC, and we said, let's float this as a concept and as a name, where we would have at a sub-rural level, we would have a body of experts who would guide the farmers in conducting their business, both in terms of agronomical practices, creating linkages for them as identified, creating capacities, and managing the organization from a business point of view, as also complying with all the statutory requirements. So CBBOs, we empaneled, we invited applications, and we were flooded with applications from organizations that wanted to be CBBOs. And we have empaneled just a little less than 100 CBBOs to run the show for us. And we are now again in the process of empaneling more FPOs. We have floated another EOI in the current year. And these CBBOs are empaneled after a lot of scrutiny, 3-level scrutiny, and then we give them the work of creating and promoting FPOs. And despite the lockdown and despite the very first year of its operation, we have close to 300 FPOs that we have registered under the new scheme, from a target of 550 in the last year, and another 650 this year, which is yet to start rolling actually. But in the last year's target of 550, despite the lockdown, despite the difficulty in sheer mobilization of farmers, because that face-to-face interaction which the CBBO is supposed to do with the community of farmers was just not possible. In spite of that, and virtually things don't work so many times in the rural areas. Either you have the issue of connectivity or you have the issue of platform, whatever you may say, but still they did it. So many CBBOs have done it, and they are still doing it, and the registration has begun. 300 FPOs have been registered by SFAC alone, and NABARD and CDC are also in the process, and they will soon be probably beating SFAC because they have such a large field level presence. You see, they have regional offices and they have district level, organizations everywhere. We have nothing. We have 4 officers here and a battery of consultants, and we try to make things move from Delhi itself. So kudos to Samunnati for having identified this big gap area in terms of credit linkages and identification of other stakeholders in this game. How do we, even if you were to say even finance is a limited resource, we talk about resource optimization, and we talk about how do we make this whole thing viable as well as sustainable. So with that, I think the availability of capital is not limitless. It is as of now, of course, limited in the sense that very few players other than commercial banks and rural banks are there, but very few NBFCs of the nature of Samunnati, which are catering to FPOs and directly to FPOs, are available in the country. So there's scope for more. But howsoever more you may have, that resource is also very limited, in terms of, so there is a requirement to optimize the resource utilization. Whether we have, say for example, I just 3-4 days back, I think we had another CII Rabobank event where we were talking about sustainability, and I thought of Jalore district in Rajasthan, for example, Sanchor, where the tail end of the Sardar Sarovar dam system has reached. And by law and by design and by incentivization, they have veered away the farmers completely from flood irrigation to drip and sprinkler micro irrigation systems. And that has been possible also because funding was made available. Because it's very nice to give homilies, or you should not waste water, you should not go for flood irrigation. But where do you get the resources from, other than capacities, other than training, other than awareness, sheer awareness, where the mullah lies? That kind of an intervention was made by the irrigation systems in both Rajasthan and Gujarat, and they have been able to wean away farmers from flood irrigation. And I think that is a huge cost, not only to the farmers, which has been saved, but to the environment and to the whole issue of sustainability. And I think the utilization of capital towards optimization of resources, towards sustainability, is where we are really headed towards when we talk of the FPO story. Because reaching out to individual farmers, making a change happen through individual farmers is not going to happen. It can only happen through aggregation, through kind of hammering through a collective of farmers, whether the collective comes in the shape of a cooperative, which Sandeep Nayak is steering, or through the companies, which Mr. Chintala and I both are struggling to do. It really matters that we catch hold of the, of the group of farmers, aggregation of farmers through FPOs or through cooperatives, and we bring in technology and we fund the technology so that there is better utilization of whatever interventions that are made available. So much is happening and so many startups have come up, but it pains me to see that very few of them go beyond the level of pilots, and upscaling is an issue because of the resources. And I think that's where commercial banks particularly, I think, or even the rural banks. I was in Bikaner, when I was posted as additional chief secretary agriculture in Rajasthan. I was the secretary in charge of Bikaner district, which is actually really a backward and remote district in terms of, even from Jaipur it takes, it's about close to 400 kilometers from Jaipur itself on the western side. And I went to a rural branch and I was talking to the rural branch. I don't remember which bank it was, but it was a rural branch. And I said ki aap FPO ko kitna funding kar rahe hain? So the poor fellow, he didn't know what an FPO was, you see. And that bank was having meetings with us in Jaipur to ensure that finances are made available, credit is flowing to the FPOs, and not his fault if he didn't know, because somewhere the message is down to the last branch in a remote branch of a remote district in a place like Rajasthan is not reaching. फिर हमने उसका एजुकेशन किया, कुछ अवेयरनेस, फिर उससे एक हमने कहा कि नेक्स्ट टाइम आई कम, आई विल इंश्योर दैट यू हैव आइडेंटिफाइड वन एफपीओ एंड आई विल कम फॉर द फंक्शन ऑफ फंडिंग ऑफ दैट एफपीओ. तो वो हम गए फिर. तो that is how you make a difference in bits and pieces. But that kind of a movement, somebody just mentioned ki from mission mode we need to move on to creating this some kind of a movement where the whole process is on everybody's fingertips, and the whole game. If you have a bank funding you, and if you have a marketing link up with some retailer or some wholesaler, and you have no problem in logistics in terms of transportation or in terms of warehousing or in terms of reefer vans, then and only then will the farming community stand to benefit. Otherwise we will have 30-40% post-harvest losses. We will continue to have farmers selling in distress, and we will not have the real value coming out of the farming practices. And I take great delight in the fact that we here in this group of like-minded people with common objectives, whether it is NABARD or NCDC or Samunnati or SFAC, we are all working towards common purpose, and we have the larger interest of the FPO segment at heart. And we have identified tools, and these tools are evidence-based. You see, we've all experimented with this, and we've come to this conclusion that this is the only way to move forward. Aggregation, funding of aggregates, and then creating marketing linkages. And of course, a whole lot of capacity building and technology and everything which goes into it. जिसे कहते हैं ना दाल में तड़का लगाने के लिए. So that is the kind of thing that we are looking at, and I think the whole potpourri of interventions for the FPOs and for the larger farming community will happen once we bring all these things together. And I thank you, Samunnati, and for bringing this kind of a network here. And we have had interesting dialogues in the past, and I hope to be able to continue with that as we proceed with the implementation of 10,000 FPOs. And by the way, you see, there is this whole buzz about the 10,000 FPOs, but we cannot forget the existing 7,000 odd FPOs that we already have in the country. And I know that NABARD has schemes for that, and we in SFAC also have some schemes for that. We are trying to renew the funding for that, but we cannot lose sight of the fact that these FPOs are, the early birds. They are the ones who came up first, and they need to be supported in whatever manner that is possible to support them with. And therefore, the role of funds beyond this 6,000 committed funds that are coming from Government of India will always be felt. And I always say that this 10,000 is only a beginning. I mean, it's not like we have really identified the optimum number of FPOs that we are ever going to create. No, this is just a starting point. And I think with whatever resources that we have individually available with our organization, we shall continue to support the existing FPOs or newer FPOs beyond the conclusion of the 10,000 FPO scheme. So thank you very much, and good luck and best wishes to everyone, so that we all may work towards a common cause and deliver results for the benefit of the farming community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words and for highlighting Samunnati's contribution in this space. We are truly humbled. Taking the proceeding forward, I would like to invite Dr. G.R. Chintala, Chairman NABARD, to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to all. And first of all, I'm extremely thankful to the organizers for bringing such luminaries onto one platform. I could see on the screen our ex-NABARDians and who are in the top positions, like Dr. Ramesh Chand, Niti Aayog member also, but we are very proud that he was also from NABARD. Sri Srinivasan sir, and Tagat ji, Pravesh ji, and Arindam was also an ex-NABARDian. And Neel Kamal Darbari ma'am and Sandeep Nayak ji, we are all partners in maybe rolling out this entire CBPO, FPOs through the CBPO movement. And Pravesh Sharma ji, who was a trendsetter earlier as the SFAC MD, that he used to move around, because in Delhi when I was there, I used to interact with him, and he got quite a lot of an insight into really how this entire farmers networks have to be created, and they should be made into a kind of a viable organizations. So I'm thankful to Anil ji, and the other day, actually maybe 2 days back or 3 days back, we met in Chennai. A group of like-minded entrepreneurs. Actually, there are almost around 10 people were there so for a breakfast meeting. And I was extremely delighted the way actually those entrepreneurs are really talking about as to how to make this entire FPO movement a very vibrant, economical, and also profitable to the farmer. One of the things which was really bugging everybody's mind, because now since a lot of history was already told by my previous speakers, both the Sandeep Nayak ji and Neel Kamal madam, so I don't want to go into really what exactly we are doing right now through the CBPOs and others. But now I am moving around the country. In the last 1 year, despite the COVID, actually I was going through all states, and I went to almost around 10 states. Wherever I was going, I was seeing almost maybe 1 or 2 FPOs as to what they are doing and how the organizational structure is there, and how democratic it is, and how vibrant it is, and ultimately really what kind of facilities these FPOs are getting from the local governments, and also the financial institutions, and at the same time, really how their production process are linked to the entire market. So now wherever I go, actually, I was looking into all these things and talk to every one of them. So some of the things really which need maybe an immediate attention of everyone. It's very easy to form an FPO. Actually, that is now after going through all the things, because it is comparatively much easier to do something, but at the same time, it's very difficult to create a very vibrant FPO. And sometimes actually now, in case if there is a kind of a targeted approach, saying that you have to form maybe 10,000 FPOs or 100,000 FPOs in a limited period of time, probably there will be a tendency among the people to just form an FPO without even going into the groundswell, and also really how the maturation process is there for the people to take up this one. This is one area which probably we may have to look into it little seriously. Apart from maybe the CBBOs, which are interested with this kind of a job, actually the others also have to keep an eye on really how the groups are being formed and whether they are homogeneous in case of at least maybe the thinking process. I'm not saying that caste, creed, or religion, but thinking process and activity. And subsequently, whether they are maybe aware of the compliances. Actually, now this is one area which actually everyone is really facing a real tough time. The other day I was in Tamil Nadu. I went to one of the FPOs, which is almost, I think, 4 or 5 year old, and they are making maybe reasonable profit. I'm not saying that they're making reasonable profit around 70, 80 lakhs, and they are doing maybe a business. But at the same time, if you look into the business plan and also the business expansion, I think still quite a lot of inputs are required to them to do this one. Though everybody is trying to do it. Now, I see that they say that they want to work with only the local materials that they are aware. Because they say the cropping pattern is paddy and maybe a little bit of a groundnut. And they just want to do it. But at the same time, when we look into the latest document of this FPO, they say that one district, one product, and also maybe a kind of a export orientation and also market orientation are the prima donna for this entire FPO movement. But that kind of a thing is still not drilled into the minds of the people. I think this is one area which I feel that all of us have to do it. Now, the second thing is, now there are two aspects of the financing of this entire FPOs. That it's very difficult, easy to say that now every FPO has to be given, but thing is, now as a lender has got his own kind of maybe reservations and also apprehensions as to really whom to finance and when to finance, how much to finance. And in case if he finances, whether he gets back this money, these are all the issues which one has to look into it. Now, when I look into this one, that as Nilkamal madam was telling, that there are already 9,000 FPOs on the ground, of which at least I can say maybe around 5,000 to 6,000 are doing some activity or other in a profitable manner. I'm not saying that they are making tons of money, they are making profitable manner. And when we conducted an internal study of our FPOs, actually we have close to around 5,000 FPOs in the country. We did the study across various states, right from Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu, and everywhere. And we found that wherever the FPOs were grounded with the philosophy, maybe the wherewithal as to really how to comply with the entire requirements, and also the democratic functioning as to really how to, what are the things to be taken and what are things not to be taken. There was a tremendous amount of benefit has been accrued to the, not only to the FPOs, but to the farmers who are associated with this. And we found when we aggregated the data of the study of almost around 300 FPOs our people have studied, we found that on an average, a member within the FPO has got a benefit of 25 to 40%. That is the benefit with regard to the aggregation of inputs where the dealer's margin itself is being passed on to the farmer, while the aggregation of output and ultimately value addition that is actually giving some that is being plowed back. When these two things are saying that in case if the farmer without much of the effort, in case if this organization can give the profit to the farmer to the extent of around 40 to 50%, I think that we are on track to double the farmer's income. So that is one area I think I want to emphasize. So now the greatest burden on the implementing agencies, all three major, that is NABARD, SFAC and the NCDC, is it is not just for the sake of maybe the fulfilling the targets. Actually, we should immediately rush to form the FPOs. FPOs have to be formed. There is a time frame, but thing is, while doing it, I think we have to do the due diligence of the farmers. We have to make the group very vibrant. Actually, this is the one thing which we may have to keep in mind, because these FPOs have to survive forever. Whenever we are looking into the literature and maybe everything, I find that maybe the paradigm shift is happening. And every one of us know that maybe 1970 to 2021, the land area per farmer has come down substantially, and the ability of the farmer to invest in the farm itself has been eroded. And so that means there is a time that they have to do the collectivization. So when the collectivization is happening, we have done maybe a collectivization in the form of FPOs in a very limited. Now, if I look into all the 9,000 FPOs which we are having, I think the entire nation, these 9,000 FPOs could cover hardly maybe around 18 to 20 lakhs of farmers. As against, we are having close to around 114 crores of farmers. So now the task is so huge. I think now we have to take a look into as to really how to cover more and more farmers. And also the 10,000 FPOs, when we were looking into it, on an average, if 500 farmers are enrolled, 10,000 FPOs cover only 50 lakh farmers. Now again, 13.5 lakh farmers, still 13.5 crore farmers are yet to be covered under this one. So that when somebody was asking me as to really how many FPOs are needed in this country, I say that now numbers are limitless. Probably we may require maybe close to around 4 to 5 or 10 lakh FPOs in case if this is the case. Now, can we really make maybe this kind of a grant to all these 5 or 10 lakh FPOs in future? That is area, it's a different kind of a thing, but at the same time, the present thing, when I was looking into it, that existing FPOs, really what are the critical requirements, which whenever I am talking to them, what are the critical requirements which they are talking? They say the first thing is all the 500 farmers within the FPOs are not getting the crop loans from the banking system, because either they are defaulters, otherwise not able to comply, or maybe some other problem is there. So now the FPO financing, actually I look into the two different aspects. One part is the farmer part, the other part is the valuation part. So now the farmer part is the one which we are trying to take care into this one, because if you look into the statistics, in the last maybe 5-10 years, quite a lot of small and marginal farmers are being pulled into the formal banking system. And this year, out of the 15.38 lakh crores that have been disbursed for the agriculture loan, almost maybe 80% of the loans have gone to the small and marginal farmers. So that itself is an indication that now at the farmers level, the issues are getting resolved, but at the same time, that also is a requirement. And the second thing is, when the farmer is an FPO, right now he doesn't have any kind of a extra benefit to get the loan from the farmer, from the bank, because he is treated as any kind of a normal farmer. So now, in some cases, some of the FPOs, whereas in some of them are really vibrant and dynamic, I have seen in few states, wherever the farmers are not in a position to get the loans from the mainstream banking system, because of their marginal kind of a land part, or maybe not able to give any kind of a thing, these FPOs themselves, who got access to the literature on the joint liability groups, they formed the joint liability groups within the FPOs and aligned them to the mainstream banking system. So in that way, they are doing it. So now this is one area which we have to look into it, because ultimately, if the FPO has to be successful, all the 500 members or 1,000 members, they have to get access to the concessional finance that is being doled out by the mainstream banking system at the rate of 4% or maybe 0% depending on the state. Then he will be a very willing partner to produce whatever is required, because now just ultimately that in case if the FPO has to make a mark, I had seen some of the most not only profitable, the dynamic FPOs I have seen, actually they prescribe a kind of a protocol to the farmer, saying that now actually this is the crop which gives quite a lot of a return. Why can't we all produce it? And they are supplying the quality seeds and also a particular variety so that there is a uniformity while going to the market. Now, this is the thing, in case if they have to do all the farmers, actually they should not be constrained for the finance. So this is the first thing which probably we may have to look into it, all the thinkers who are there in this one. And the second part, the most opaque part, is the value chain financing. The other day also in Chennai, when Anil was there and few other people who are into a big time with so many other things, they said really why the value chain financing is not getting the same kind of attention as maybe the other kinds of financing. Now, we did maybe some kind of, it is my internal assessment, I say that the value chain financing in the country requirement is in the maybe the back of the envelope calculation, at least per year, it requires around 50,000 to maybe 60,000 crores to just, or even that also may be less, but at the same time, in case if I really look into it, because to start with in a very conservative way, if you say that 50,000 crores also, really this value chain financing need some kind of a special attention by the mainstream financial institution. So now here, apart from institutions like Sammonuti also now, if you look into the gamut of operations and also the way the requirement of finance is there, Sammonuti can maybe give only a small amount of it, maybe at the max, maybe around 1/80th, 1/100th of the requirement. But thing is, the requirement is so huge. So now NABARD had a great amount of a discussion with the State Bank of India and a few other banks. And State Bank of India has got a FI and MM vertical. Now they are looking into it because they signed an MOU with NABARD in all the regional offices. They are going to the FPOs and say that really what kind of a value chain financing and at which level actually they have to intervene. Because the value chain financing, if you do the segmentation analysis, there's quite a lot of a requirement at every segment of this thing. It may be the input aggregation, it may be the Uberization of the farm mechanization, it can be maybe the labor sourcing, or it can be maybe the drones related kind of a spray. Now already some places they are being done. And the next one is with regard to aggregation of the produce at the village level to the next primary processing and at the taluk level and ultimately at the major level at the FPO. And all these segments require quite a lot of a finance, and there maybe all of us should really work as to really how the banks can be maybe a part of this kind of a value chain financing. Though the Reserve Bank of India in the recent PSL guidelines had given that 5 crores as the maybe the limit, maybe 5 crores as an amount that can be given to the FPOs as for the value chain financing and others. But it is yet to be maybe operationalized in a big way in the ground level. So now this is one thing which we can do. And the other major important thing, apart from the financing, what we have seen is that maybe that lack of information at the FPO level, at the farmer level as to when to harvest and what are the market requirements and other things. And every one of us will sing songs about the Israeli way of doing the thing, because Israeli kibbutz are nothing but the FPOs in a bigger scale. And there now, if you look into that entire strategy, which actually when we went, we saw that maybe if the order is there from Europe and a particular day, this much is the quantity, actually the entire thing is communicated to that kibbutz so that they will do the harvesting, they will keep, and everything is ready. Can we really have such kind of a thing where at least this limited FPO, in case if this is the market requirement, whether it is the vegetables, fruits, pulses, or any kind of product they make, really that kind of information should flow from top to the bottom, from market to the ultimate producer, so that the producer will be the beneficiary. And the other thing which I have seen, now take the case of that cold pressed groundnut oil. Now that has become a fad because everyone is trying to look into as a kind of a health related thing. In Hyderabad, cold pressed groundnut oil is sold for 450 rupees per kilo. The other day I went to Tiruvannamalai, they said they are also doing the same kind of a cold pressed oil. They are selling it 190 rupees per kilo. Now imagine really how much of a profit actually these poor farmers who are not connected to the markets in a big way and not having access to the information actually are getting deprived of this kind of a benefit. So now that is where I think a kind of a networking is required. Now creating FPOs is only one part of the story, but thing is Aligning them to the market and on a sustainable basis is the most important thing. And the next one is with regard to that, with regard to the exports. Now, though we are all happy that the exports even during the COVID has gone up a bit, but at the same time, the way the production and the productivity is going up in the country, unless we reach that $100 billion exports, I think over a period of time, again, the farmers will be at a kind of a crossroads. So now this entire thing has to be aligned to such kind of a thing. So now when I look into this platform, which is being launched by Sammunnati, launch of Open Agri Network, I was extremely happy because the way every one of us are talking everywhere, because I have seen so many people have created some platforms, but thing is most of them are localized. Some people, because the other day I had seen one of the software, actually they take care of everything about this one, right from inventory to the fertilizers, how much is that done, and how much each farmer owes to the particular one, and what is the interest rate they do, and everything is there. But at the same time, it is not totally a kind of a very comprehensive way, whether we can bring maybe some other player like the startups, maybe the service providers, the farm mechanization suppliers, the processors, and also the marketers. Everything should be done to the insurers. Now, actually, that insurance is a very big thing, because at one point of a time, people say the insurance is compulsory. Now it has become optional. Now the farmers, many times they feel that they need not do, but at the same time, there should be some kind of element so that every player within this value chain should be part of this open network. And then really they can upgrade the whole thing. So now NABARD is also looking at various things, because every time somebody will come and present us something, actually I see that it is maybe one part of the story, because it's not a very integrated. So now this Open Agri Network, let us see really in case if we deliver such kind of a thing, yeah, to some extent, probably this kind of a thing can be replicated all over the country. So now I am extremely happy that a great thought has gone into creating this kind of a network. And to make Indian agriculture resilient, we need hundreds and millions of FPOs, and maybe all the 140 million farmers, now almost maybe near 90% of the small and marginal farmers, should be on board the FPOs, and there should be a kind of a directed production with a market orientation. We should all strive to work towards that and wish that someday that day will come. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for the address. It was extremely insightful. Now I would like to invite Mr. Pravesh Sarma, Director of Sammunnati Agro, to introduce the network.
Friends, I think we are at an extremely interesting point in the program. We've heard 3 national level sector leaders speak about the entire FPO ecosystem, especially what needs to be done to leverage these nascent collectives to the next level in the value chain. And it's an extremely exciting and for us a very inspiring moment that on this day, we have the presence not only of sector leaders like Sandeep, Nilkamal and Dr. Chintala, but we're going to hear very soon from the person who looks at this entire sector from a vantage point which is unparalleled, Professor Ramesh Chand. But before I invite him, I think it's only fair that we share with both the panel as well as the audience, which is here in large numbers, the broad features of this Open Agri Network that Sammunnati is building. So if you could please play the video, Madhushri, before we invite Professor Chand for his remarks.
Yes. I would now like to introduce our chief guest, Professor Ramesh Chandra, member Niti Aayog in the rank and status of Union Minister of State. Professor Chand is currently responsible for India's vision, strategy, and action agenda for the agriculture sector, including the government's flagship agriculture program for doubling farmers' income. I would now request Professor Ramesh Chand to share his thoughts on the network and launch the programs. Sir.
Thank you, Anchor. All the five panelists who spoke before me. My ex-colleague, Dr. G.R. Chintala, who I would say has stolen, in fact, most of the points which I was going to take up in my speech. And also some of the points I thought I will share with you. Madam Neel Kamal ji has spoken. Of course, Naik ji also gave a wonderful overview. And I also feel very happy to see the invisible list of participants, nearly 400 of them. And when I read some of the comment in the chat box, I find some of the participants seems to be much more knowledgeable, at least than me, in terms of what are actual issues being faced by FPO and how we should steer FPO. Really, I find that very useful suggestions and comments are being made in the chat box. So that shows the kind of people who are participating in this meeting today. I congratulate Samunnati for their journey to use FPO model for development of agriculture and for development of small farmers. I was part of their important program last year, which was Samaram on 15th August, which is important day for us. And I find that within a year, Samunnati has come out with another very important initiative, but next for FPO, open network kind of things. We all know that we are a country with dominance of smallholder. In fact, if you do right kind of calculation, 75% people operate less than 1 hectare of land, and half of it is unirrigated. So you can imagine that what you can do on this kind of land, how you can make living out of it. In fact, sometime I used to say that hectare is sacrosanct and useful only for official purpose. If you go to the countryside, nobody knows what is hectare. The units are always different, depending upon maybe Rajasthan still from where Madam Neel Kamal comes. People may be talking of murabba and hectares, but everywhere else you find people talk now not of even acre, bighas, in Bihar, kattas, like that. So land size has become so small. I think the first important implication of that, which is not so far reckoned by FPO movement, is, in my opinion, more farmers are going to become part-time farmer in future than full-time farmers. So this is going to be a new reality of the country, that whatever MSP you give, whatever subsidy you give, farming will not give enough income to average size of holding to 75% of farmers who are operating on less than 1 hectare, unless somebody is doing floriculture or something like that. So you will find that people will be looking for some job outside farm. It may be related to agriculture, it may be non-farm, whatever kind. So I think this FPO movement must reckon to this kind of things, and Madam Neel Kamal also need to pay attention better that has any legal implications in terms of membership of FPO, that if somebody is a part-time farmer working at other places, can he or she also become a member of this? The second point which Chintala ji made, I also did calculation that for nearly 10 crore of farmers, how many FPOs we will need, assuming average 500 or like that. So if you look at the requirement that even if it has to be that 25% people have to become member of FPO, I think we are far, far below even our target of 10,000, and you add existing number, we are far, far below. But actually, will we need it? So we need to work on two fronts, that we need to work fast with more vigorous efforts to create more and more FPO kind of organizations, work with more strength, have more ambitious targets. For this, involve private sector, NGO, and others to mobilize FPO. This is economists call it a necessary condition, but sufficient condition. Again, mentioned by Chintala, I would like to re-emphasize that rate of NGO, FPO becoming non-functional and redundant is quite high. So as a result, if you see out of total FPO which have been created till date, how many are functioning, I feel that it is very, very important. And the most important job after creation of FPO, to my mind, is how to help them to remain as a viable professional business entity. So if any organization is genuinely interested in this, through whatever way you do, I think this should be the second most important challenge, that even if we leave the job of creation of FPO to institutions like SFAC, NABARD, NCDC, state governments, the second challenge where I think government institutions do not have much comparative advantage. It is the private sector, it is the NGO, it is the startup who have to do the hand-holding, who have to help them to stand as a business organization. I think this is a tall order. It will require a lot of imagination. It will require a lot of planning at local level. It will require a lot of resources, and it will also require motivation of people that they continue to own FPO and consider it as their own organization. So I feel that Samunnati has taken this step in the right direction, that time has come when everybody in the country is convinced that there is a need for FPO and we need to promote FPO. The next stage is that after establishing those, how we ensure that the redundancy in the case of FPO is reduced to the minimum, and they should not meet fate of cooperative that at one point of time there was a cooperative in every village and most of the farmers were member of cooperatives, but then you find that in most of the cases they were non-functioning. Even with government assistance, they were not able to do what was expected of them. I was just trying to draw some similarity between what Samunnati is doing and a FPO. I think Samunnati can have its vision that one day we want to reach a level where Amul has reached. Today it is not only Amul, Amul is known. There are so many Amuls which are not known, unknown stories of so many Amuls which are not of that giant size, small size, but doing equally good or rather better work than even Amul. So I feel that the way there is a dynamism and commitment with Samunnati, you should have that vision that we have to create that kind of organizations, and where FPO have to be like dairy cooperatives. And then you will find that whatever activity you have mentioned in your note, that this is what you want to do for your members. So you just find that there is an organization who is doing already these kind of things, and you can have a lot of learning from them. I also want to add that whatever activity you have mentioned in your note, I read it with great interest. One activity I feel which is most important, which probably inadvertently got missing, or maybe I'm putting excessive emphasis on that. That activity is to help FPO identify what they should be producing. Identification of what is the suitable product for FPO, and preparing a suitable production plan for that. You talk about input supply, seed supply, financing, value chain, they are important. But I think if you keep doing things in a conventional way, and you are not harnessing the demand potential, much of which is latent, is not visible, then you will not go very far. You will only harness only the whatever is the inefficiency in the existing system. So if you want to create a new kind of opportunity, you need to help FPO. Okay, you are growing these kind of things, but also 10% area think for maybe medicinal plant, maybe for health food, maybe for organic food, and what way you prepare their production plan. So if you think it proper, I think you include this also in your activities, that you will be identifying the products and preparing a production plan, suggesting to FPO with their participation, keeping in view what are the market prospects, what is the best technology available. So if you do that, then I think whatever you are doing, the benefit of that will get in some way multiplied. Then you talk about connecting smallholder to markets and to end users. Somehow I always used to feel that every farmer, whether it is small or large, he is in some way connected to end use. That connection may be visible, that connection may be indirect, but it is visible. Suppose there is a small farmer in Gujarat, he is selling 2 quintals of groundnut to an aggregator, but he doesn't know where it goes after that. But it is possible that one day the nuts, peanuts which I am taking in my snacks, they are those which come from those 2 quintals which that farmer has supplied. So issue which matter is that why this connect does not become more direct. Why this connect is not visible to the person who is the producer, who is just the starting point for us, and why he is not a stakeholder at West. I think that is what we can make in this linkage. Otherwise, you just find that link is always there. When you start looking into these, you will identify the reason that maybe scale was an issue. Maybe a farmer have pressing need for finance, so he under distress sold it. Maybe he didn't know what was price in the market, so he sold it to the trader in the village itself. Maybe he did not keep it to sell it after 3 months because he doesn't know what price will be after 3 months. Or maybe he doesn't have a storage capacity to keep that 2 quintal kind of things. Because in this country, whatever technology we have developed till recently, it was lumpy units. It was not targeted at small farmers. Many a times I raised it in the presence of agriculture machinery people that you always want to stop import of farm machinery and equipment from China, which is suitable for our farmer, but you never made a tractor which is less than 25 horsepower. It is only after that, that last 4 or 5 years, you just find that Mahindra took initiative. Otherwise, we used to see the large tractors for which the break-even point is that at least 10 hectare, 8 hectare, like that. Not 1 hectare or 2 hectare, even pump set, etc. Story has changed a little bit recently, but still storage structure and like that lumpy unit, can we think of someone as a FPO collection, keeping certain things separate? So if you will, I think, look at the ground reality of bulk of the India's agriculture marketing, you will find that this kind of things are ruling the scene. But on positive side, I find that there are some bright spots. Things are changing. Startups are coming forward. Some places FPO are doing exemplary job. Organization like Samunnati, which have dedicated people, they are doing the job. In terms of larger picture and the larger role which you will be playing, which probably you have not yet foreseen, is that right now the agriculture development model has become state dependent, completely state dependent. But the way you are trying, you are pushing for a self-sustained development model. This is what impressed me, your model, that you call it Amla. And some of those who have Punjabi background, that actually we are following a Amli model, not Amla model. I don't know how many of you understand meaning of Amli. Amli is a person who is addicted to some sort of nasha. So I think we have taken Indian agriculture to Amli model. We have been telling our farmers, you don't do this thing. You need not pay for power. We will give you free. You don't pay for fertilizer. We are going to give at 80% subsidy. And you don't pay for water, anything. So really, Amli model we have created. And today farmers are also fed up of this model, that they have become dependent on state for MSP, for everything. The model which you are proposing, I think it will help this country to get rid of this state dependence model, which is leading to agrarian distress, which is leading to fiscal distress. The model which you are talking, that is the model which is, I think, which can ultimately give us a self-sustained development model of agriculture and farmers. The last point which I want to make is that you rightly talk of value chain, and you likely talk of farmers, but today in our country, we find that almost all organizations, they have started talking about farmers, their genuine concern, their non-genuine concern, political concern, etc., etc. But person who pays the full value for the value chain, we are not talking about that. And that is poor consumers. So if you can integrate that person also, who sustain your value chain at the other end, is very, very important. Make him also part of your value chain in whatever way, so that he also benefit from these initiatives which we are talking. So once again, congratulations to you, Anil Kumar ji, and to Pravesh ji, who always come with innovative idea related to marketing, related to smallholders. My best wishes for the success of this new initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for setting some goalposts and milestones for us to look into the future. And thank you also for launching the network. We are indeed privileged. Sir, हम एक ही आमली रखेंगे sir, keeping the smallholder farmer at the center, and how all these initiatives finally add value to the smallholder farmer. वो आमली हम रखेंगे sir, इतना तो आश्वासन देता हूँ. Right, Amla framework or other frameworks. But what Sammunnati looks forward to is the guidance, blessings, and support of each one of you on the screen in this journey. Yes, each FPO becoming a Amul as a model would be a dream come true for many of us who consider this as a lifetime opportunity to do something meaningful in this incarnation. So to say, certainly yes. Sir, in the business planning exercise and the advisory services, we will certainly bring in the dimension of what is the best crop that is suited for the soil condition and the climatic conditions of that FPO, rather than going with whatever they have been doing. And we will also take your input on that, sir. Fortunately, there is some technology available on the traceability. We have to integrate all of this, and if we can bring in the traceability all the way to the 1 hectare of our smallholder farmer, we should be able to make the user know where it has come from and which farmer it is going to. And there are wonderful examples outside, especially in the coffee value chain and other value chains where this is indeed being done. It's not difficult for us to replicate that in India, and we take that also as a guidance, sir. Yes, the person who pays entire value, the end consumer, will need to be part of the overall story. And if you can make that entire value percolate down to our annadata, the percolate all the way to the producer who has started that value before the value addition happened, that would be great. And that's why we are looking at the tagline for this open network as seed to success. So it could be seed to success, metaphorically speaking, and actually speaking in terms of the cultivation. So we take all your inputs as the inspiration for us to look into the next level, sir. So thank you for launching the network.
Thank you.
Madhushri?
Moving on to the next segment of the event, I invite Shri Pravesh Sharma, Director, Sammunnati Agro, to moderate a discussion on building a participatory inclusive FPO network, challenges and opportunity. He will be joined by a power pack panelist, Dr. Venkatesh Tagat, Independent Director, Sammunnati Agro and Development Consultant, Dr. Sudhir Goel, former Additional Chief Secretary, Agriculture, Government of Maharashtra, Shri Arindam Datta, Executive Director and Head Asia Sustainability Ranking, Rabobank, Shri Hemendra Mathur, Venture Partner, Bharat Innovations Funds and co-founder of ThinkAg, Shri Anish Kumar, ED, Transforming Rural India Foundation, Shri Kuldeep Solanki, CEO, Gujpro, Custodian of FPOs. Over to you, Pravesh ji.
Thank you, Madhushri, and a warm welcome to the distinguished panel. I think it's been such an inspiring opening session with the insightful and such rich views from all our distinguished inaugural panel speakers, capped, of course, by the unique address that only Rameshji can deliver, given his presence at the apex of this entire strategic and planning exercise at the national level. And certainly all the views that he has expressed, especially his emphasis on the idea of keeping the network open and inclusive, I think we definitely take that to heart. And as we go forward and we roll out the design of this network, that's certainly going to be one of the thoughts that we'll keep uppermost in our minds. The purpose of this panel discussion is really to flesh out the brief idea that we shared in the video. The architecture of this open agri network is going to be a process of consistent evolution. There is nothing fixed. There is nothing rigid about this. The whole purpose is to be able to respond to the needs of the ground situation of the various members as they join this network, and to help us ideate through this process, we thought that this panel at the very point of inception could give us some pointers, some do's and don'ts, some caution, some directions on how, as we go along, we could make this network both productive, but also prevent it from becoming rigid, ossified, or actually failing in its own goals. So I'm not going to be speaking beyond this, because I know that we need to hear these very, very rich, distinguished panel of experts. And I'm going to open with the Dr. Venkatesh Tagat, as Srinivasanji said, a veteran of NABARD, but also now post-retirement, a veteran development sector worker. He's on the board of Sammunnathy Agro as well as Sammunnathy Finance. And Dr. Tagat, given that you have seen the movement of farmer collectives from the cooperative phase to the FPO phase, and now we are looking at the next phase with numbers being added, how do you see the role of a network like the one Sammunnathy is launching today in impacting the sector? And how do you draw in a wide variety of actors to look at this network as a participatory, collaborative framework? Dr. Tagat.
Oh, thank you, Pravesh ji. So I think, as Professor Rameshchan said, this AMLA network is supposed to be basically focusing on market linkages and access to credit. And I think that is the one which will draw all the farmer collectives, if you want to use a very general terminology, to include cooperatives also, to this particular network. Because we have seen in the past that crop-specific growers associations have been pretty successful when they all come together in a network. If you look at Maharashtra's Grape Growers Association, if you look at, they even went into branding like Mahagrape and Mahamango. We find that, and we have similar ones in Karnataka called Bijapur Grape Growers Association. They have been very successful networks because they have been able to meet the aspirations of their farmer members. So I think any network which focuses on providing access to markets and credit would be the main drawing force for all the farmer collectives. I also believe that one of the challenges which the network would have is how to, based on my limited experience, how to mix the capacity building which NCDC, NABARD, and other institutions provide with the credit services which financial institutions provide. Currently, in many cases, we have seen they go independently, but if we can mix them up, we had seen this in the umbrella program which NABARD had done a few years ago, we find that there is a lot of specific advantages when both are given, provided together like a particular, what shall I say, in a particular way, rather than independently operating as capacity building and credit, or loan services. I also believe that though this has been set up by Sammunnathy to start with, more and more public sector and private sector partners would be interested to be part of this, so that it becomes a very large neutral network which serves the ecosystem of FPOs and farmer collectives in the country. So I would say this is in brief what I would have expectation of this network. Thank you.
Thank you, Tagatji. That was very useful and insightful and very good pointers to building this network going forward. Sudhir, can I request you to come in next and to reflect on, especially given your very deep experience of working in Maharashtra, you have worked in the agriculture sector in the state government for perhaps almost 15 years. And your experience beyond your retirement, working with private sector companies, FPOs, NGOs. How would you think that a network like this could become an arena for collaboration rather than being seen as another competing company trying to corner a segment of the market? Sudhir, please.
Yeah, great, Pravesh. Now, I'm really encouraged to see that these third network which you are launching today. Now you have Agri Elevate, you also have Samarambha, and now you have a network for FPOs. Now here lies the solution. How do we connect these three? So value chain network is giving us the players which are there on the value chain. Our AgTech companies, which is there, your startup kind of a platform is giving the kind of a technology which can work for integration. And now FPOs coming together, the challenge lies, how do we integrate these three platforms into an end-to-end value chain system? And so where would it work? Wherever we have the highest opportunity for success, for such kind of bringing together the players, whether any part of the geography of the country or any sector, probably fruits and vegetables seems to be the most prominent, because in terms of the loss of value and in terms of consumer rupee going to the farmers is lowest in this sector, the opportunities are immense. And so in what way we could integrate various players of the value chain, which you have already started working with, and the technology players will decide the success. Can it work backwards, where we first find out the market opportunities, where we can see that the consumers would be willing to pay and what for, and who are going to be the main buyers before the consumers? Is it a processor? Is it a exporter? Is going to be organized retailer or even SMEs? We in this debate always forget about these small players, and in fact their presence is going to be strongest, because my experience shows to connect FPOs and farmers to SMEs is infinitely simpler and quick. And since we are there through Samunnati to help not only the FPOs but also to certain extent the SMEs, this completes the entire cycle. So the buyers are there on the board, and at the same time the producers are there. I dare say that when I heard Amla, the first thing came to my mind that should it not be Pramla? It starts from production and then aggregation and then market linkage and then going to the advisory. So the advisory is working backwards, starting from when I know the market linkage, I go back how to get it produced. And that is what the point Dr. Ramesh Chand also has mentioned. Now, how do we attract in this process the various players like NGOs and the state government? Now these players are looking for investments in a value chain, particularly from the point of view the crop loan, at the same time technologies, infrastructure, and luckily there are good number of government schemes which are tailored for that. Recently AIF has come with 1 lakh crores. MFE is there with 10,000 crores. National Food Security Mission is already there. NMOP, that for oil seeds, this program is there. Then Mission for Integrated Development of Horticulture is there. NHB schemes are there. Unfortunately, none in the country is working on this aspect. So this network can become a very vibrant network when at Samunnati we say that we have a business idea, we can connect you to the market, but for that, not only is our finance, but also the government schemes which will be integrated on this platform and which will complete the cycle. Now, in what way the private sector can be enlisted into it? Now, private sector is looking for certain product to be taken to the market, whether it is an exporter or whether they want a traceability. So there are certain challenges. To give an example, if there is a tricyclazole problem of pesticide residue in paddy, in rice, and it is creating problem for exports, where should the industry go? Now, if there is a market challenge which this platform can address to, that we have got good number of FPOs with whom we will work for you and give you the kind of product you are looking for with complete traceability, the private sectors will jump on it, because the private sector today is working only with those intermediaries with whom they have no other option but to interact, because that is the only traditional way they know. But tomorrow, if this platform can change the way the private sector has been sourcing their material, whether for processing, for exports, or for organized retail, in a way where they are also integrated with the value chain players at the last level, that is farmers and farmer producer organization, I think this platform is a great success. All the best for this platform to succeed in the interest of the farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudhir. As I said in my introduction, only you can bring this richness in short intervention. You've given us such major pointers, how to integrate with SMEs, not just look for large corporates, how to converge with the government programs. Yes, definitely. That's one channel the farmers and FPOs are always seeking to connect to. And lastly, also your suggestions on how to connect to large private sector players, especially exporters and processors. Thank you again. Thank you for all these wonderful thoughts. I understand you have to join another meeting, so please feel free to log off whenever you want. Thanks again for your presence here today and for sharing your thoughts. Anindam, I'd like to turn to you next, because you heard from everybody who's spoken till now. Sandeep, Nilkamal, Chintala ji, Ramesh Chand ji, on the critical role of finance. And I think you, again, are in a unique position, having contributed significantly, especially to increased financial flows to FPOs, to some very innovative work like the Rabo Credit Guarantee Fund, which has enabled NBFCs like Samonnati, NAP Kisan, etc., to step forward and increase their exposure to this vulnerable segment. How do you see the role of finance and innovations in financial products in the success of a network like FPO Next? Anindam, please. Is Arindam with us, Momishi?
Yes, I am here. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I was on mute. Thanks for inviting me. I'll just make a couple of quick points. The first point is the design issue of FPOs and FPCs. Now, it's extremely important that at the design phase, the bankability issues are embedded very well along with the other capacity building initiatives. Now, what do I mean by bankability issues? Now, whenever any financial institution takes an exposure on any business, there are credit considerations and non-credit considerations. The credit considerations, the capital base would be the profitability, cash flows, and the security, the financial statements, the audit statement, and the non-credit considerations would be the leadership, the governance structure, and the systems processes. Now, it's extremely important that ab initio in the beginning that these elements are built into the FPC. I do not see that happening currently because we do not see good business cases or business models being there when FPCs are being set up, and it's more reactive in nature. Farmers are aggregated and then they search for a business model, which is, I don't believe, the right way. That's extremely important. Second is, and that's the point I think Dr. Thagat also made. The second point is for the financial institutions to have access to credible data and dynamic data. Now, for that, digitization of farmer base and FPOs is critical so that the banks have access to the kind of data and they can get a quick reaction from the businesses on the different queries they have, and the banks feel more comfortable that here is an FPC, a business which is on top of its work in terms of being able to provide the data in a manner which is acceptable to the bank. So Hemendra probably will speak more about that, but digitization is extremely key for access to finance. The third issue I'd like to talk of is, we talk about FPCs not receiving financing. I really do not see a big problem there per se, because of a couple of reasons. FPCs are nothing but cooperatives, and any kind of FPO is a collective. If you look at the history of cooperatives across the world, the very successful agri-cooperatives, they have taken 15 to 20 years to mature. Now in India, we are trying to force maturity within 3 to 5 years, and that too with FPOs exclusively having smallholder farmers with thin capitalization possibilities. It's a big challenge. We need to give them more chance for them to mature to a level when they would be acceptable by the financial institution. The last point I would like to make is, in India, access to finance is a problem for any small business, for MSMEs as a whole in the sector. So if you look at the large banks and you look at the other financing institution in the country, the impact funds, the NBFCs, the microfinance institutions, and now the most importantly, the fintech initiative, which is going on, at least in the urban areas, they typically are providing more capital to the MSME sector than the mainstream banks. The mainstream banks are happy to provide wholesale facilities to these institutions and take the institution risk rather than a small business risk. And FPOs also suffer because of the inability of the mainstream banks to be able to unlock capital. That's why it's extremely important that institutions like Samurnati and other niche institutions, they build up the track record. They work with the mainstream large banks on co-financing this sector, which has now been made possible by the central bank. And it helps the mainstream banks to achieve their PSL status, which has again been now been allowed by the RBI from the classification perspective. It'll be a gradual process. So institutions like Samurnati will have to lead the way, handle the financial institutions, the large ones, take a substantial risk on their own balance sheet, and to be able to unlock more capital, especially from the public sector banks. So that's extremely important. But the role that SFSC has played and NABARD is playing now, and I heard a large guarantee is going to be is around the corner. Now, these guarantees also play an extremely important role because collateral is not available at the FPC level. And cash flow based financing is possible by the NBFCs. It's not possible by the banks. They wait for 3 years of profitability. They look at the cash flow. They look at security. These are the minimum requirements. FPCs don't have them. So guarantee is the way forward, I see, at least for the next 3 to 7 years. And the critical part is the guarantees need to be extremely flexible. And the last quick point is, a lot is being said and a lot of emphasis is being made on balance sheet financing. That's working capital and term loans to build up assets. But the critical piece for FPCs now is seeing the constraint of balance sheet funding is post-harvest financing, the kind of work that Argos is doing or ARIA Collateral is doing, where the balance sheet risk is not on the bank. It's extremely important that banks take a commodity risk, which they are far more happier to take. So that's extremely important. And that's where Samurnati has used success to be able to do product development and to do trade financing at the FPC level. So that's extremely critical. And I think that's the way to go in the next few years. And the guarantees need to be very, very flexible without onerous conditions which doesn't make guarantees work for a nascent sector. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Arindam. It's so educative listening to you, especially for a complete moron like me in finance. But I have to say that the principles that you have enunciated are actually so self-evident, and they make so much logical sense. And all these points are most gratefully received. And Samruddhi, of course, as this network grows, will be working on many of these ideas. We also completely agree with you that perhaps we need to shift our focus to specific commodities and not just simply talk about the vague term called value chain. So thank you so much for these very useful inputs. Hemendra, I'm going to call you on as the tech guru, especially the agri-tech guru. The whole startup community, especially the agri-tech startup community, looks up to you, and rightly so. And one of the big attractions of creating this network is to enable and foster deeper relationships between the fast-growing agri-tech startup ecosystem and the FPO ecosystem. In a sense, both are in their infancy. Maybe the FPOs are 7 years old and the startups are around 4 or 5 years old. But they are both in their growing phase and they are both learning as they go along. Given your role and your understanding of both these sectors, what do you think that a network like FPO Next needs to do to incentivize and accelerate these partnerships?
Thank you, sir, for the kind words, and many congratulations to Samruddhi team on the launch of FPO Next. I'll break your question in two parts, sir. One is, what role agri-tech startups can play in improving the viability of FPOs. I think that's extremely critical. And second, the role which ecosystem need to play in deepening the relationship between startups and FPOs. So on the first part, and I think this point has been raised by previous panelists and our keynote speakers also, I think first and foremost, I see a huge role for the agri-tech startups to work with FPOs essentially on the value addition at the farm level. We all know most FPOs end up selling, commodities, not the products. And that's why if you look at the gross margins, it's like 2 to 5%, 7%, and they leave too much money on the table for others to make money. So my hypothesis is that if we involve agri-tech startup who have demonstrated farm level value addition through microprocessing, through cooling, through freezing, through dehydration, multiple small level interventions at the farm level, I think that can come in very handy. And I'm not talking to a lot of capex. Capex could be within few lakhs. So I think that is what we need to create in partnership with agri-tech startup, and change the whole FP model from selling commodities to selling products to selling brands, and going all the way closer to the consumer. What Dr. Chandi was saying, why leave consumer out? I think he's the ultimate, he's someone who's paying for everything, right? And we have seen the demonstration like Earthfood, Asphorus Technology, EcoZen, Promethean. There are many examples who have demonstrated it. So I think that's extremely critical, and that will hopefully make this relationship sustainable and lot synergistic. Second point where I see a role for agri-tech startups is essentially what Arindam was pointing to, digitization. Right from input purchase to application of farm inputs to farm advisory. We were talking about traceability as a tool for building export-linked supply chain. I think that is where agri-tech startups have done a phenomenal job. These interventions bring efficiency, transparency, governance, financial controls. And for any FPO to mature, and Arindam rightly said, it takes time. But I think these are the tools, and fortunately, we have access to digital tools which can help you to mature a little bit faster, right? And this can also act as a decision-making tool. They're not just governance tools. And again, we have startups like Farm ERP, Cropin, SetSure, RMSI, Bharat Agri, who have done it at some scale. So I think that's point number 2. And the last point is on enabling access of financial products. I think that's extremely important. And when I say financial products, I'm not saying just loans, but what about insurance? What about digital payment solutions? What about saving solutions? So I think these are the areas where the agri-tech and the fintech solution need to come together and build access of this to the FPOs, and who in turn can pass it on to farmers. So I think these are some of the areas where agri-tech has a role to play. All of these, I'm sure, will improve viability, farm economics, and make the relationship more synergistic and sustainable. On the role of ecosystem, again, 2-3 pointers, and I think the first suggestion is for FPO Next. We are seeing this whole super app approach. If you look at urban innovation ecosystem, even likes of Tata and Jio, the large players, are building super apps to cater to the consumer markets. If you look at rural India, I can't think of anyone. And if someone has to do, it has to be Sammunnati or FPO Next, who has to make this happen. And there are more than 1,000 agri-tech startup already. I'm sure there's an element of curation, but I think even if we can take 50 or 100 such startups to FPOs, and we have pretty good penetration, depth in the FPO ecosystem, startups are struggling to find markets and struggling to reach out to the farmers. I think we are a perfect platform for building that bridge between the startups and the FPOs. I think that is something we should evaluate as a strategic agenda for FPO Next. How do we bring these two siloed ecosystems together with our intervention? Second suggestion is essentially for policymakers, likes of NABARD, SFSC, state governments. I think there is a need for catalytic intervention. And I've seen a lot. You go to any FPO and ask, how many agri-tech startup you're working with or of. They're not able to name even one or two. And likewise, very few agri-tech startups are working with FPOs. So can the policy makers or the state governments or some of these bodies can bring these ecosystems together? Let's say on a quarterly basis, get 10 FPOs, 10 startups together in a room, just lock them in a room for a day, and I'm sure something good will come out of it. So I think there's some bit of catalytic effort required. It's not going to happen on its own. Third thing which I would like to propose is, if I can name it, like an internship program. Each startup should encourage their new joinees or even their management team or founding team to spend at least 1 month with a startup, with an FPO. I think there is so much of misconceptions and cultural differences, and I don't see that going away unless they work together very closely. We send our doctors for internship in rural areas after they complete MBBS. Can't we encourage our startups and even agriculture graduates to spend time with FPOs? I think that could be one intervention. I don't know who's going to do it, but maybe we can do something out there. And last but not the least, I think another model which we should try is FPOs incubators. We have incubators, most of the incubators, and a lot of them supported by DST, NITI Aayog, AIM, etc. Majority of them are in urban India, and majority of them are housed under educational institutions or private entities. But can't FPO be promoted as incubator? Because they have fields, they have crop, they have almost everything, which startups are looking for to validate the solution. So especially for early stage startups who find it very difficult to do validation in multiple geographies, multiple crops, and that's where they find it very difficult to get customers and investors. It can be encouraged at least some mature FPOs to become incubators, and connect them with very, very early stage startups who are looking for support on mentoring, on tweaking their solution, etc. So I think a combination of these hopefully will probably solve the challenges that we see. Hopefully will improve tech adoption among FPOs, and of course for startups it will be a big blessing, because their struggle is farmer access, and if we can build this relationship, I think they will also be able to scale the solution much quickly and more efficiently. Thank you, sir. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Hemendra. Rightly, I title you as the tech guru. In such a short time, you've given us such a rich basket of ideas. I was wishing I was not the moderator, so I could actually take notes, but I'm going to press the organizers to actually put out a transcript of all the speakers and their wonderful, great suggestion. Thank you again for these very insightful things, and we continue to look forward to engaging with you even outside this formal launch to take many of these ideas to reality. Thanks again for your time and for these thoughts that you have shared with us.
Thank you, sir.
Anish, you are a person who began and still remain embedded deep in the civil society institutional framework, and yet you are one person who has demonstrated that civil society institutions can also build very successful, viable, sustainable enterprises, business enterprises. From your perspective and experience, what would you suggest could be lessons that this FPO Next network could pick up from other networks? And you have been associated with many of those networks, number one. And secondly, I'd also like you to reflect briefly on how could this network attract and enlist the participation and collaboration of resource institutions. So not only the FPOs, but also the POPIs or the RIs that have been associated with building FPOs in the past. So could you share some thoughts, please?
Thank you very much, sir. And while I share this, I would also like to share some of my reflections on why what Samounnati does is so important, and how we can prevent FPOs not becoming the new Amli of the civil society sector, sir. I've been engaged there for some time, and there is a real danger of FPOs becoming the new Amli. Sir, in some ways, when I have looked at FPO all these years, I figured out there is a Panch Tattva there, and which is very important, particularly in programs like the 10,000 FPO, sir. And this Panch Tattva, as I say, is, sir, the characteristics, the elements are, one is, sir, formalized, the other is planned, the third one is membership, the fourth one is collective, and the fifth one is organization, sir. And I'll explain this little bit. And there I see is one big role that FPO Next or a platform like this could do, which actually answers some of the challenges that both the RIs face and also the FPOs face, sir. But let me first explain what I mean by these, the Panch Tattva, sir. Planned, I mean, sir, these are deliberately formed, XC2, and these are not Swambhu or emergent or self-organizing ones. While, we did hear about Mahagrapes, nudged by the state, but it was largely self-organizing. By membership, sir, I mean association of persons. It becomes a service organizations of and for members. That is, it is beyond merely economies of scale. And that's why these organizations, these FPOs will always be under constant pressure to deliver value to their members, above and beyond that of the members' contribution or effort or patronage. This is a reality, sir. And to get that extra, that is, FPO need to deliver both on alpha, that is beat the market on returns, and also better on beta, sir. That's to have a lesser risk than the market. And a member ka dil always mange more, sir. In my experience, the real challenge is captured in this dichotomy. And that is what has to be answered with design of the collective business, sir, and that we haven't attended adequately to, sir. The other, is that all commodities at all times may not be amenable for that excess collectivization gains, both the alpha and beta. The other related thing is, sir, member stickiness is another challenge. Today, we have a massive network of SAGs and PACs also, and in various forms, shapes, and life. But in one survey, and I looked at Gallup looking at 70% of economic decision making being emotional, there is a big role for the software here, sir. So I don't know how CBBOs are looking at that 70% emotional part of the member decision making, economic decision making. So FPO Academy, maybe the network could look at that. By collective, sir, I refer to large number of individuals coming together within some structural form, sir. And that is the role of governance, sir. And this has been the Achilles heel, sir. This is another dimension which is much less recognized, sir. And there, I think the role of finance, as it happens in normal NSR businesses, is both debt and equity plays a critical role in ensuring governance, sir. And we don't see that. The fundamental structure of FPO doesn't allow for that. And we have to see a systemic way for this to be answered, sir. Organization is the fourth one, sir. And this I say in the classic Thomson definition that functions on a, it has to, the organization functions on a continuous basis to achieve a common goal. What Chintala was saying, that forever it has to exist. That requires a robust business plan. Arindam also referred to that. The formal means, the last word, the tattva is the formal, sir. It means you become a body corporate. As they say it, you can be sued and you can sue. It's always the first one that happens. That means application of statutes, and which is a very, very interesting challenge in our country, sir, with where we have law for almost everything, including crossing a road, and with a very highly discretionary, idiosyncratic, high context-driven, and application. So compliance has become a very important role. So one of the suggestions I have for this open network is to support FPOs and RIs to get a better handle on this Panch Tattva. Provide technical support. This is basic hygiene and good health support, sir. Without this, FPOs would not grow. Now, coming to the other dimension of FPO, sir, the central letter there is P, sir. And because it is planned, as I said, sir, it is XC2. So often, and that has been my gripe, it is conflated with promoter or some patron. Willy-nilly, it becomes like a pocket organization of, and I speak from civil society organizations perspective, sir, from RI, poppies, it will become like that, sir. In my experience, sir, P goes beyond actually producer. So while we have to be watchful of the promoter and patron character, it goes actually beyond producer. It is for productive, the point that you also made, sir. What brings me to this is how productive the FPO is and how productive farming is from where the members are drawn, sir. And productive, when I was looking at the Cambridge English, it is large supply, positive, valuable. Etymologically, it comes from French, which means fertile, producing abundantly. Abundance is the crux of that, sir. So unless we are able to create value, surpluses, this won't work. So today we have many FPOs, merely collection of individual farmers or disparate fragmented products. It's a bit like kahin ka eat, kahin ka rora, Bhanubati ne kunba jo raha. So many of the FPOs are actually like kunbas, but not, they are not designed to become a business organization. And that's one great learning from the dairy sector, sir. And Dr. Kurian, may God bless him, and we are in his centenary year. He actually, realized the power of decoupling agriculture and food, sir. And systematically now you see how Amul actually now is into food. It's not into a agriculture production system, full on pizzas, biscuits, the whole lot. That could be another mandate that, sir, the FPO next could take up, making this P very important, making FPOs productive. Farmers, sir. Now let me come to the first letters of farmers. It is very important for FPOs. Who is this farmer? And you have many numbers, sir. But I would look at one number, which is, and I picked from the NSO, the last survey they did. And I look at the middle, sir. The bottom and 3 deciles, sir, we should leave, sir. They are into a different situation altogether. And the top 3 deciles also we leave, sir. So the middle is where, you are going to get bulk of the farmers for the FPO, sir. Who is she? She is, and that's about 5 crores or 4 to 5 crore, and we are looking at. She is a small scale producer, essentially one season of 1 year horizon, unable to take long-term investment, innovation, major change, difficult. Most farmers have no buffer. Implicit cost of capital actually is 50 to 100%. Rameshji said that 70% below 1 hectare, and half of them, he did say that it is rain-fed, and that's government is speaking there. So why are they afloat then? So for having this segment, less than 1 hectare, half rain-fed to be afloat is just, there is no other opportunity. They don't pay for their labor. And so actually they consume whatever they produce. So now the big question for us is, and that is where you could, FPO next could add value is, we have to understand the context of the farmer, and we have to look at expanding the pie. Unless we expand it, you will not be able to distribute it better. as Chintala Sahab was saying, you have to look at FPOs now, or Rameshji was saying, we have to look at it beyond land. There are latent opportunities, and some of it would be unknown locally and outside, pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals, and aromatics and what have you, and build linkages to new set of demands, processing, exports. This could be a very natural role for the network. And as you were saying, between the suffering farmer or the suffering or the stingy or the full payer of the value chain consumer, a lot of people make a lot of money. I was looking at Cargill, a staggering top line of 115 billion. Similarly, you look at ADM, Nestle, Tyson in poultry and meat, Mondelez, they have few trillions there. We don't have such behemoths in the pharma-centric world. You have, Kibuz was referred, or Amul. Amul is a very small fry. But I was looking at, say, something like a Genno, which has in Japan 57 billion revenue. That's just half of Cargill. Or National Agri Co-op Fed in Korea, $32 billion. CHS in America. What I found central and common in all these three pharma-centric entities was focus on finance, marketing, and supply chain integration. That's a natural play for FPO Next or this open network, sir. And post-COVID, more so as we are in a localized global plus local supply chain, we could we need to design the market, capital, and tech, the MKT right, sir. Capital, I think, is the unlock, and for farmers to make money at one end and also for FPOs to make money. And that's where it is very important for Sammunnati to be anchoring this. And I'm so happy that Sammunnati has started it, because capital is that unlock. One end, you have the farmers, you need money there to get them onboarded. The other end, you have off-takers, you need capital. And you did talk of new financial instruments that Arindam was talking about to manage risk, price volatility. We had talked about access to social security and things like that. We need to now look at FPO Next to graduate. It cannot just be a response to peasant plight. It has to be about new value economy. That's the success, that's the space. When you say seed to success, I'll say making new value economy is that seed to success, sir. FPO as a path ahead, no brainer, sir. You have been saying it for a very long time. Today's deliberation also affirms that. Challenge is, how do we get this right? And as I said, I will again repeat it. It's the Panch Tattva, the productive, the latent, and the linked opportunities. The other important part is doing it together to build a new model. It has to be a more open model than a Genno or a CHS through partnership. Today, this is important because I made a difference to one starfish is not going to work, because there are far too many stars interlinked. Hemendra talked about the range of startups. FPO is also a startup. So we need to get the entire FPO ecosystem galvanized, the startups, the private sector. That should be the agenda for FPO Next, to my mind. And as I see like that is, I'm reminded of that Suraj ka Satwaं Ghora. You know that chariot of the sun god is pulled by 7 horses. 6 just follow the set path. And that's what we should leave the 10,000 FPOs of the world to do that. It's the 7th horse which actually possesses the power to change the course, sir. And in that, I wish the open network to be that 7th horse, sir. I will conclude with those thoughts, sir. Thank you very much.
Wow, Anish, thank you so much. So powerful, so passionate, and of course, full of your own hands-on experience. This has been really inspirational listening to you. Thank you so much. It'll take us some time to even absorb all that you have said, but I couldn't agree with more than with every word that you have brought out. Thank you so much again for this very organized and such a good direction that you have set for us. Kuldeep, I saved you for the end because not you are the least important, but because you are actually representing perhaps the most important stakeholder for whom this network is being largely designed. You have led GujPro, the Gujarat Consortium of FPOs, so ably for the last many years. You understand both the problems on the market side as well as the production side. So looking at it as a potential user, what would be your expectations from a network like FPO Next? And what would be your thoughts today? Does it excite you? Does it make you yawn and say, well, more of the same? And what should we do to actually grab the attention of the larger FPO community? Kuldeep, over to you.
Thank you, sir. And I would like to keep my camera off because I have been on and off. In fact, because of the sowing season, most of our team is in the field. And I have changed 3 locations. In fact, the power went off at 1 location. So I had to shift at 2nd and 3rd location.
Please go ahead.
So regarding your question, yeah. Obviously, I have been associated, I started my career with networks, and since all these years, I have been associated with networks. And recently, since 2014, since 2012, we have aggregated this of FPOs into informal forum earlier, and then registered this as Goods Pro Agribusiness Consortium. So my observations is like, for example, for the initials, like we are forming 10,000 new FPOs, and several new other FPOs are coming up beyond this government program. I see every time I interact with new people who have formed their own FPOs. So the initial phase and part of the primary concerns, like they kind of require support, capacity building support on various fronts on how to run an organization, on the governance part, administration part, on the role of the governing board member, the management, all these aspects, the technical and sector specific areas, they need support on those fronts. Some are exposed to that particular business area or value chains, but most of the FPOs are not exposed or do not have a poor understanding about supply chains or what the markets, how the market functions in that way. So market linkages become difficult. So a CV support in these areas is very much required. So I would suggest that this network has an important role to play. As we see, many institutions are already available, but the network can actually form a platform, could empanel capacity building institutions, and could organize FPOs and support them in these areas. The network could mobilize funds in this area and provide this support. Similarly, similar to what other associations do, there are new technologies, new business areas, new information which needs to be regularly shared, and this network could play an important role in that, which already NFPO is doing and several other networks are already doing. At the same time, some FPOs have done some exceptional work. They have achieved sustainability or are working on good value chains. So this platform should perform as a knowledge sharing platform or experience sharing platform. So this such kind of exposure visits could be organized, such sharing platforms could be organized. So this network is best placed to do that because of its vast coverage across India. The other important point which I would convey is like what FPOs are facing, the 2 main things like market and finance. So while after forming FPO, their primary dilemma is like where to market the produce. Okay, what should be their long-term plan on this cost, because primary they are exposed to only the primary markets, like the markets in their village or at the taluk level or the district level. But what does the whole value chain entails? So what are the costs if they want to set up a processing facility or so? So a clear understanding of value chain of local commodities could be best understood by carrying out small value chain studies of regional commodities. This literature should be available to the FPOs, and accordingly, this will help them in setting a vision or an agenda for the next few years, or also help them prepare a business plan, which actually they can move ahead with. So that is one point. Then FPOs on the marketing front also, FPOs require hand-holding support during the initial phase to interface with market players and market their produce. The primary thing is most FPOs, we said, they are very good at marketing producers of input and seed selling to farmers. But when it comes to selling the production of farmers in the market, there are several bottlenecks associated with it. So what we have followed, and even what Sammohunati Agro has done in Gujarat, which I am exposed to, they provide hand-holding support. Initial phase mein, they connect them with the buyers. We Goods Pro take a part of the risk that if it is rejected, like you sell it to us, we will bear the cost. We go to the field, help them get the quality done, how to fix the pricing and all that thing. So once they are exposed to that business, automatically they will start doing the business from the very next year. So initial hand-holding support is very much required in this case. The network can also play a role in onboarding buyers to buy the produce from farmers and also organize regular interface with the buyers. This will help them market their produce to and buyers. Trade terms are not currently, the trade terms are not in favor of the FPOs. What we do trade day in and day out. So these trade terms are like 1% cash discount if you want the money in 7 days, 2% cash discount if you want immediately. Or such kind of and other parties like the buyers are new. So the FPO is reluctant to sell to them whether they will be paid back the money. So there is no current guarantee system which ensures that the goods which they sell, their money will come back. So there is some kind of inhibition in that sense. So the role of the network could actually support in establishing such kind of a guarantee system through which FPOs are more comfortable to engage with the buyers, external buyers, and sell their produce to them. So this is one area where FPOs are experiencing a problem engaging with new buyers, whether if they supply the produce to them and if the money is to come back in 7 days, whether they will be receiving that money or not. The other part is FPOs have very poor capital base. I am seeing many FPOs with 1 lakh or 2 lakh capital or 1.5 lakh or lesser. So this network could play a role in advocacy and interface with banks and financial institutions. The national network is best placed to evolve an accreditation system to accredit or rate FPOs. In addition to the standard parameters and what is available on paper, the outcome of the accreditation should also show the intent, the governance, the potential of member participation and potential of business growth if proper technical support and hand-holding support is provided to the FPO. Because there are several FPOs still not able to access the funds because of the poor capital base and poor exposure to business. तो ये एक concern area है कि how could the network support FPOs in accessing funds. Some NBFCs have also developed similar criteria. I think FWW was the first to start, and they have parameters beyond which goes beyond compliances and financial management, risk exposure of the FPO and so. The network can frame norms for accreditation after consultation and invite accreditation agencies for empanelment. And for the accreditation cost also, the network can channelize funds to partly subsidize the cost of accreditation. Banks and financial institutions should give considerable weightage to the accreditation in their rating system. Then I think a lot of FPOs which have good intent, which have great potential to do business, but are poor in capital base can, I think, benefit from this. Even the government should recognize such accreditation system. The other point is FPOs need information and services on a range of topics. Okay, so this and also advisory services to prepare DPRs, business plans. So this network could also act as a facilitation center. There are several areas in which the network could provide services and information to the FPOs. If the network could also contribute in supporting FPOs to develop HR policies, financial manuals, governance manuals, also incentive structure for employees who are doing work in the field, business development, procurement, and all that thing. Very few FPOs have such kind of incentive structure, have kind of policy for governing board members to kind of engage with the FPO, have a sitting fees or kind of remuneration structure for FPOs. Accounting policies, if the network could support them, provide them good templates or handhold them to prepare such based on local context. This will be a huge contribution. The network, the national level network and the state chapters of this network should also facilitate more interface with the government and should also be a rallying point for all advocacy initiatives at national and state level. Okay. So this huge network means I think many FPOs would join this network. So it will be one of the largest, it could be one of the largest network in the state. So obviously they will be better placed to interface with the government and highlight the issues and challenges faced by the FPOs, and also support in designing policies for the FPOs, concerning the FPOs. So we need more regional and cluster or product-based federations. There are very few currently in the FPO segment, to create more marketing opportunities, to create branding opportunities for local products, creating agriculture infrastructure or others. So these regional networks or product-specific networks have proved to be successful, okay, because they represent a particular product and they are able to generalize financing to these FPOs. So I think more such kind of federations rather than state level federation, more product specific federations should be promoted. This network will facilitate cooperation between FPOs to form such federations. So that will be a big contribution by this network. So advisory services, as I had mentioned earlier. So these are some of the expectations on what the network could do to support the FPOs. Now, how to reach out to maximum number of FPOs.
If you could wind up in the next minute and a half. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So in the age of technology, it is easy to reach out to many FPOs, but how to engage them? So I would suggest that this state level, so national federation network should also have state chapters with state level committees, which sets the agenda at the state level, what should be done, and what kind of need is felt by the FPOs, and what kind of services the network will provide. Similarly, regional groups, like for example, if you divide a state into several regions, so regional groups working in regional agendas will help reach out to maximum number of FPOs, because there are different products, different needs in different regions. Okay. So NGOs, resource institutions, and foundations remain the backbone of the FPO movement and have also created successful FPOs over the last decade. The social capital and institutions developed by these voluntary interventions of these FPOs over the last several years have laid the foundation for these FPOs. I will not say that the success behind many of these FPOs is because of the expertise, efforts, and delivered by many of these NGOs and foundations. And their role is not just reaching out to the FPOs, is also important to making them effective and viable institutions. So support from such institutions, NGOs, foundations, very much to reach out to maximum number of FPOs. Sir. And last point is, sir, allocation of resources. I have worked with several networks which are poor in allocation of resources. So I would say that adequate allocation of resources for network activities is of course important in order to remain effective and provide sustained benefits to its members. Because not these members cannot contribute like 20,000-30,000 yearly to support the activities of the network. So proper allocation of resources is required. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Thank you. Very first-hand experiences again. And GUJPRO is one of the successful models of creating these networks. It's just left for me to thank this wonderful panel for such a rich, I know we overshot the time because I just would not dare to interrupt any one of you because of the richness and the depth of your insights. Thank you again. This is, of course, only a first step. We will need to keep coming back to you for your wisdom and your advice going forward. But on behalf of Sammunnati, my personal behalf, thank you to each one of you for your intervention. And Madhushree, over to you for the final segment.
Thank you, Pravesh sir, for the excellent moderation. Quite a few key takeaways and insights for the discussion for each one of us present here. I would now like to invite my co-host, Ms. Anisha Bali, to take over the proceedings for the book launch. Over to you, Anisha.
Thank you, Madhushree. Good afternoon to all the esteemed guests and participants attending the launch today. We are very grateful to Sammunnati for giving this important platform for the release of NAFO publications. National Association of Farmer Producer Organizations, NAFO, is a multi-stakeholder owned organization working towards creating an enabling ecosystem for FPOs to thrive in. In the last year, NAFO has successfully organized multiple capacity building trainings in collaboration with Vikas Anvez Foundation. The resource persons of these trainings have been the likes of Professor Sanjeev Phansalkar, Professor Ajit Kanekar, and Professor Avinash Paranjpe. NAFO has also launched the HR Marketplace, where FPOs can fulfill human resource needs on one platform. With this, we are very happy to launch the 2 publications by NAFO. The first is Making Farmer Producer Organizations Achieve Viability, a Practical Guide. It is authored by Professor Phansalkar and Professor Paranjit. This book focuses on promoting FPOs as viable and financially strong entities and discuss key drivers of viability, building from real life examples. And the second is State of FPO Report, the definitive report of FPOs in India and emerging landscape. It is the first ever sector report on FPOs and will be an annual feature. It includes the current status, the challenges and potential of FPOs, with case studies and various initiatives made in the ecosystem to provide comprehensive support to FPOs. We are very thankful to the authors and everyone involved, most importantly, the FPOs who generously contributed with data. I would now like to invite Sanjeev sir to share with the audience on the book, on both the book and the State of FPO report. Sir, what can the reader expect from these books?
Thank you, Samunnati, for inviting us and launching this book at this platform where a large number of participants that I can see from the attendees list are connected directly with the FPOs. See, we had been, as Anisha mentioned, had been conducting training programs for FPOs, and this training program is entirely focused on helping FPOs achieve viability. As you are quite aware, and I don't need to repeat this because it's not a very happy point to repeat, after 7,000 odd FPSCs and large number of cooperatives which exist in the form of FPOs, you might say, very few of them are viable in the sense that they are able to meet all their costs, including costs of growth and things like that. So this book focuses on how to achieve viability. And it's entirely, as I said, that is the single most focus of this book. And we look at 3 or 4 key guiding principles, which Tushar in his book on cooperatives, a seminal book on cooperatives, has really mentioned. And the chief of them is for the FPO to develop what we would call a unique member allegiance principle, proposition. Why should a member remain with an FPO? Why should he grow his business with the FPO? Why should he help the FPO grow? And the reason for that has to be found in this UMAP, unique member allegiance proposition. So that is, as I say, would be a key takeaway from this book. And of course, then there are the, we discovered as we continue to do these training programs, and I invite other attendees here to explore what kind of programs these are. As we go forward with these programs, particularly in the civil society sector, we discover that thoughts about viability are quite fresh in their minds because they are, most of the FPOs today are promoted FPOs, promoted by somebody else. So the agency of the members is not ignited, is not excited, and the members are only too happy to have services rendered to them by people who are being paid for somebody else. And that kind of combination where a promoter pays for somebody to do services to somebody else, that model is never going to be viable. So we need a fundamental paradigm shift in the thinking of the members and thinking of those who promote these FPOs to start emphasizing on viability from the very first principle. Otherwise, that seems to be a little bit of a difficult thought. I think we are quite overshot time, and I'll stop here. Thank you, Anisha.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm through. Thank you. About this report, we have all, the first State of FPO report, I thought this is the beginning, and we have tried to focus this report on the innovations in the financial sector, in the financial capital mobilization and those related issues. But that also, I think, is the first ever effort to put all the data together in the form of infographics, etc., about the FPOs. And I hope this report will continue to be, will become a periodic, every year we'll bring out one and will become richer and richer in the content as we go forward. This is the first volume, and I hope that it will be found useful by the readers. I think that's that. Thank you.
Very good effort.
Thank you, sir. I would also like to invite Anil sir to share a few words on Sammunnati's association with NASCO. So if you could talk about it briefly.
This, in fact, is the inspiration that Pravesh sir instilled in us when he said we may want to look at engaging as an ecosystem player. And I was also fortunate to be part of the very first brainstorming session prior to NAFPO coming into a formal existence. Wonderful to see two publications, and most importantly, the state of the sector. I remember the early 2000s, the 2004, 2005, the seminal role that the state of the sector report in the microfinance industry, of which Srinivasan sir has been an author for a few years, at least 3 years, if I'm right, played the role, because that became a reference point for everything. That became, as they say in the data parlance, the single truth. You need to have a single truth, or else all the numbers will keep moving here and there. So with the likes of Dr. Fansalkar with his rich experience, and of course Ajit Kanitkar and Avinash playing the role, it would be a fantastic value addition to all of us, referring to one set of database, one set of numbers, and one set of infographics to represent what's happening in the sector. I also have seen the theme of the Inclusive Finance India conference being set by the findings of the previous year's State of the Sector report. So there are a lot of outcomes that a State of Sector report can bring about, and wonderful that the first report is out, and it will pave way to very many initiatives stemming from the findings in the report. That's it, Anisha. This was impromptu. I didn't know that you will call me out to say something, but this is what came about as I heard Dr. Sanjeev Fansalkar talk about it.
Thank you so much, sir. May I now invite Arindam sir and Pravesh sir to e-launch the two NAFPO publications by releasing the ribbon.
Thank you.
Arindam
Thank
sir,
you. Thank you, Anisha. Thanks to NAFPO, thanks to the authors, thanks to Samunati for providing us the platform. Here's the book, please. I hope people read it and get the inspiration, as Anil said. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Once again, thank you to Samunati and everyone for continuous support and invaluable contributions. Back to you, Madhusri. Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. We are coming to the concluding part of the session, and I would like to request Mr. Anil Kumar SG, founder and CEO of Samunati, to provide his closing remarks. What is that?
Very grateful to all the stakeholders again, each one of you, for taking out time. This journey wouldn't have been what it is, and would have been meaningless but for the guidance and support that Samunati team has got from each one of you, all the stakeholders. The one that has been non-negotiable for us is the reason why we exist as an organization, making markets work for smallholder farmers. Several inputs have been received thanks to the the eminent people on the panel and the roundtable, as well as the distinguished speakers on this day. Several initiatives and inputs received on the chat box, as well as in the form of questions. We will put together all of these inputs together as a note and circulate with people who are interested to take a note of the takeaways, and it will also act as a guideline for us. As Kuldeep rightly said, finance is an important dimension. While at a network we will indeed be looking at providing comprehensive solutions, but I also want to take this opportunity to mention that at Samunati we are actually launching a complementary campaign again to provide in principle loan sanction for every registered FPO to the extent of 5 lakhs, as long as you have your registration documents, and most importantly, as long as you as the founding members of your FPO are united. We are committed to bring about one tool that we are most familiar with, which is the debit credit tool that I often talk about, the loan. So an in-principle sanction, which is an online portal, would be launched across the country from today, and whichever FPO wants to make use of this loan facility, you may want to please go and submit your details online, and it would be with a turnaround time tracked, and everything is built for the pandemic times, which means no physical contact, no paperwork, and no past history, no looking into the rear view mirror, and no asking the seventh horse, as Anish said. अपने हिसाब से, इसको चलाएंगे, and perhaps the guidance that we got on all of these fronts for so long is giving us the confidence that when you are united as the founding members of the FPO and as board of directors, Sammunnati is committed. That's the only thing that I can say. Quite a few valuable insights have been received. We are out of time for me to read out all of this, but the note that we get would be helpful. Yes, this is the time for us to bring about a congruence of Samaram, Agri Elevate, and FPO Next. We'll bring together all of these, and Hemendra has been party and privy to all this thinking. So Hemendra, your bachas, which are the AgTech companies, because we fondly refer you as the father of Indian AgTech and startup. So your children will get all the support and attention from Sammunnati. That's the other commitment that we make, whether it is access to the FPOs or access to the venture debt. Please continue to guide us or nudge us if we are not moving fast enough. I think we have lost Arindam, but I still want to mention formally here that it is the unflinching support, both Arindam as a person and Rabo as an organization, that Sammunnati is grateful for. Their initial set of guarantees is what gave us the confidence to move forward. Srinivasan sir, Tagat sir, your continuous guidance and support over the since our inception, so to say, because today is also birthday of Sammunnati, we are grateful for that, and keep guiding us on the right track, sir. Pravesh sir, we formally working together is more a detail, but you have always been guiding us since 2015, and I'm grateful for the chance meeting that happened, and a little bit of a secret here. It was actually Girija ma'am who connected both of us. So I'm grateful for that connection that happened, and you reinstilled the gut feel that we had that you are in the right direction. Go ahead with the FPO, which, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, was an accident. So it was a good accident to have, maybe providential. I don't know, but thank you for your continued guidance, sir, and we move forward. Kuldeep ji, saath mein kaam karna hai, as we have been doing, and NAFPO indeed is an organization we look forward to engage, of course, Anisha. Thank you, sir. On this note, a heartfelt gratitude and thanks to all of you for making this journey valuable and meaningful for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.